Good evening, Gamecocks.
This week on Gamecock Game Day, we have a special March Madness episode for you. First, we'll recap the Gamecocks women's basketball team journey so far. Then we will have a Final Four preview where we will tell you all you need to know before Friday's games.
All that and more coming up.
Welcome back to Gamecock Game Day. I'm Zander Collins.
And I'm Austin McConnell. It's been a long road for the Gamecocks women's basketball team, but they have made it to their 5th Final Four in a row.
The Gamecocks started the tournament off strong with a dominating 60-point win over Tennessee Tech. They then moved on to the second round where they defeated the Indiana Hoosiers 64-53. In the Sweet 16, they played a close game with Maryland, but eventually came out on top 71-67.
And just last Sunday in the Elite Eight, they battled to the very end for the 54-50 win over Duke. Now they will head to Tampa, Florida for their Final Four game against Texas.
Well, I don't think we need to touch on the Tennessee game too much in round one. We destroyed them, obviously, did very well, did everything we needed to do. But let's go ahead and talk about Indiana, Zander.
You don't want to talk about Tennessee Tech? That was, if not the greatest performance we've had, or they've had this season, because they did everything right in that one. You love to talk about how they struggle from three in that game. Yeah. They shot 63% from three after shooting just under 28% in the SEC tournament. So that was a good thing to see for that team. I mean, you are right, though. 60 points, it's not much of a game. But we did see the tournament debut of Joyce Edwards, who finished that one with an astounding 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. And, of course, more production off the bench in the form of Mylasia Fulwiley with 15, 5, and 4 blocks. Not steals and blocks together, but 4 blocks. Yeah. As a smaller guard, that is an incredible feat to do. Another just great storyline for that one was the fact that all the available players got in and scored a basket, forced 18 turnovers as well, won the rebounding battle. But yeah, Indiana was much more of a game than that one.
And I'm not, dissing on the team. I'm just saying, look at who they played. It's Tennessee Tech. It feels like every first couple games of the season where we blow them out, we get in our groove, which is great. And I am very proud of their three-point outing that day. That was a lot better. But I do want to move on to Indiana because that's where I started to get a little nervous. We were down 1 at the half. It was looking a little concerning, but Indiana came to play. After our last Gamecock Game Day shoot, when I dropped you off at Darla Moore, I saw the Indiana team, and they looked locked in. They looked ready to come and play. They got through Utah, ended up playing South Carolina really closely. And they looked dialed in. Chloe Kitts finally came alive there in the second half, having all 10 of her points in that second half in the third and fourth quarter. We ended up winning by 11. So safe to say Chloe Kitts was, the big factor of this team and that game, and she has been all tournament. Yeah,
another slow start, something that has been kind of a theme for the Gamecocks this season. Really, they won the game in that third quarter. They outscored the Hoosiers 26-14, and that made up for the score deficit, as you were saying. But yeah, Chloe Kitts had an incredible second half after that slow start. Bree Hall led the Gamecocks in scoring, with 11, shot 75% from beyond the arc. But this is kind of where we saw the struggle of some of the younger players because Joyce Edwards did not have a great game for her standards, had as many turnovers as she did points. You'll kind of expect that to kind of go away as she gets more tournament experience. Shea Zieski for the Hoosiers led all scorers with 12, and Indiana's been kind of one of those teams that's given South Carolina a little bit of trouble, especially in recent years, last year especially, and in this one too, taking the lead against the Gamecocks in the first half. We were all at full staff watching that one. Everybody was kind of really worried about that one, and for the right reason. Indiana's a tough team. Don Staley talked about it when talking to some SGTV reporters, just saying that they're a tough physical team. They love to play down low. Great defensive team as well. So Gamecocks had to really pull it out in the second half to be able to make that one happen.
Absolutely, and I always talk about just find ways to win, and that becomes very evident in this Maryland and Duke game. But let's go ahead and move on to the Terrapins versus the Gamecocks. It was real concerning going up against them. I'm not going to lie, I didn't think we had to sweat this one out for the Gamecocks. I kind of said it in around the horseshoe last show. I was kind of like, maybe Duke is our first real challenge, but immediately we were met with Indiana, and immediately we were met with Maryland. And the Terrapins just outshot the Gamecocks in field goal percentage and three-point percentage. Had to come from behind yet again, but found that way to win. Fulwiley was on a mission. She had 23 and led the Gamecocks to a comeback victory. Kit's continuing to be a big factor that I was talking about. She scored 15 again en route to that 71-67 victory. Lots of fans were worried about that one the entire game. I even heard like rumblings from where I was in this restaurant, and a couple of them were saying like, oh, I don't know, they didn't really deserve to win. I don't follow that narrative. I don't believe in that. I think a win is a win no matter how you get it done. Yeah. Maybe you can make some sense of that one, but I think it was a good win. They held their own in the fourth quarter and did everything they needed to down the stretch.
Well, I think it speaks to the level of a team when you're able to face adversity like that and still come out on top, find ways to win. We've talked about it many times this season about softball. They find ways to win, and that's why they're one of the top 10 teams in the country right now. And that's the same case for the women's basketball team. Another game where they saw themselves down at halftime and had to come back from that one. Chloe Kitts, of course, you said 15 points, but also had 11 rebounds. It was a huge part of the Gamecocks getting back into that one as well. And we kind of see some of those struggles from three reappear in this one. They shot just 26.7% from three, but also had 18 turnovers. And Full Wiley, of course, without Full Wiley performing the way she did, the Gamecocks would have had no chance in that one. You saw the highlights were everywhere. Driving to the left, behind the back, floater. Yeah. Like, come on now. That's an incredible display of skill. But, like you said, the Terrapins, kind of everybody going into this one was thinking maybe, it wouldn't be as close because Maryland ranks, I think, upwards of 250th in the nation in paint defense. Yeah. And at this point in the season, the Gamecocks are really starting to put things together down low, especially with Sanaya Fagan and Chloe Kitts being kind of an outlet as well. Yep. It's not there, they pass it out. And the shots fall from there. But Kayleen Smeichel led all scoring for the Terrapins with 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. But like you'd expect, their defense in the paint wasn't as strong. We mentioned Chloe Kitts' performance. She had the first 10 points for South Carolina. Yeah. But I would be doing Ali Kubik a disjustice if I didn't talk about her performance for the Terrapins. Perfect from the field with 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals, only missing a shot at the free throw line.
And just like Full Wiley flying to the rim, we're flying through these matchups. And so let's go ahead and talk about the Elite Eight against Duke. This was another close call, another 4-point victory for the Gamecocks. But as we talk about some studs coming off the bench for South Carolina, Duke had their own.
Yeah.
Toby Fournier, I hope I'm saying that name right.
That's correct.
Awesome. She led the team with 18 and put it all on the line for that Duke squad. That was so back and forth. Both teams faced a lot of adversity in that game. Both teams coming from behind. It was just a really fun game to watch. Those free throws there at the end were a little stressful, but again, South Carolina doing exactly what they need to in the final couple minutes to secure the victory.
No, I think Kara Lawson needs a lot of props for the way that she set up her Blue Devils team. Obviously, a lot riding on this for both squads. South Carolina looking to get their 5th consecutive Final Four appearance. Duke looking to get their first since 2006. Yep. So going into this one, everyone was talking about the strength of the Duke defense, but I was really surprised by, we talk a lot about the freshman stars coming off the bench for South Carolina, but like you said, Duke had their own in Fournier, who had 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 stocks. Not to mention she had 5 offensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. So that, especially in that, it was 8.5 minutes, they went scoreless. Just getting that extra time off the offensive rebounds was an incredible for Duke. But, basketball is a game of runs. So South Carolina starting off strong, going up 10-2 early on, and then there was a lid on top of the basket for a lot of that middle portion of the game. Yeah. Ashlyn Jackson also had a standout performance for Duke, 13 points, 3 rebounds, and 6 assists. But, Duke had, I want to say, 19 offensive rebounds in that one and 22 defensive rebounds. So it's another one of those things that we've talked about this season with the rebounding and stuff like that, and that really almost proved costly because, extra possessions, extra time with the ball, especially when you're in a scoring drought, can be detrimental to the momentum. But yeah, and then it was also very scary at the end with that charge call on the inbound on Bree Hall.
Did you agree with that call?
I think it's a tough one. There's nowhere really else that Bree Hall can move there. Yeah. And it was, I think they were only up 2 at the time, so it gave Duke the ball back with a chance to tie it. And of course, the game ended with some Chloe Kitts free throws, very composed Chloe Kitts free throws. But yeah, I said it on Around the Horseshoe a few weeks ago. I didn't think we would have any trouble really until the Final Four, but Duke really showed out in that one. And really unlucky with the defensive effort that they put off that they lost that game.
It's been a crazy last few games. Obviously, any game other than Tennessee Tech has been concerning and a dogfight for these Gamecocks. So we both kind of agreed there that we were like, oh, Final Four is kind of when they're going to have their first real challenge. They wiped the sweat off their forehead with that one, just as I'm doing right now because I'm really hot. But it was really, really good game. It was a really good first few rounds for the Gamecocks. Now, in their 5th straight Final Four, they just got to stay composed.
Shout out Coach Staley.
Yeah, man. She's doing everything right. She's recruiting correctly. She's keeping everyone composed and focused. But they're also just having fun. They're playing for each other, and they're playing for Coach Staley. A lot of guys will like to talk about Nick Saban at Alabama and how much of a stickler, how strict of a coach he was, and how hard he was to play for. But that's what winners do. And Coach Staley will have fun with you, but she will get on you if you're making mistakes, and she's doing everything right.
And it really
now.
works because if you look back at the closer games that they've had in the last 2 rounds against Maryland, they were down with 3.5 minutes left to go in that game.
Yep.
What did they do after that? They held Maryland scoreless for 3 minutes straight.
Yep.
Just really coming up with big plays whenever they needed down the stretch, and that's what happens when you're coached by someone like Dawn Staley and have the talent that this team does have. And it sees them in their 5th consecutive Final Four. And yeah, let's talk about that next.
Coming up after the break, Zander and I have Final Four predictions coming your way.
Welcome back, Gamecocks. This Friday, the women's basketball Final Four will take place in Tampa, with the Gamecocks going for the championship repeat. Before they will get there, though, they will have to take on the Texas Longhorns. On the other side of the bracket, UConn will seek redemption after their Final Four loss last year to Iowa. They will take on the UCLA Bruins for a spot in the championship. Before we dive in, let's take a look at our predictions for the games. You go ahead, Austin.
So I'm going to start with South Carolina, Texas, obviously. That's the 4th time they're meeting this season.
That's incredible.
2-1, the Gamecocks currently have the regular season and SEC championship lead over them. They know each other all too well. This will be an interesting one. 2 of those games have been in big moments, though. SEC championship, and now here we are in the Final Four. It doesn't get much bigger than that. It's hard to beat a team twice in a season, let alone 3 times. So it's going to be a really big challenge for the Gamecocks, and we kind of expected this. We kind of saw Texas coming out of their region as a 1 seed as well. So I think if they just keep doing what they're doing, they're going to match up well against Texas. But Texas has exposed them before, and wouldn't be shocked if they find a way to do it again.
Your thoughts on UCLA and UConn?
That's correct. UConn opens as an 8-point favorite, and I don't think they win by that many, but I have them over UCLA. I think they're the hottest team in the country right now. Paige Beckers is a walking bucket. She's playing her heart out in her final season at UConn. I do love the way UCLA plays. They have had such a great season. 2 losses.
Both to USC.
Both to USC. And before you say anything, UConn just beat USC. Obviously, there was no Juju Watkins. I know, I was waiting for it, but they ended up beating UCLA, or UCLA ended up beating USC in the Big Ten championship game, and then USC lost to UConn by 14 without their star player Juju Watkins. I know that killed their momentum, and they very well could have been in Tampa with her in the lineup had she stayed healthy, and we would have had all 4 1 seeds in the women's bracket, just like we do in the men's bracket. But yeah, UConn's looking to get back into their elite status. Their dynasty era, it's kind of been South Carolina so far, with those back-to-back championship appearances and, just 5 straight Final Fours. They are running the show right now, and UConn's trying to put a stop to that. So I've got UConn versus South Carolina in my championship.
All right. Well, South Carolina, Texas. Obviously, you said it's kind of hard to beat teams 3 times. A lot of the times, it's not even mathematically possible to face a team this many times. So shows the level of Texas in their first season in the SEC. Texas yet to really be tested so far this season. Double-digit wins in each round, including that Elite 8 matchup to send them to the Final Four against the Big 12 champs, Haley Van Lith's TCU. Despite that, I'm taking the Gamecocks. You don't make 5 consecutive Final Fours without being a team that can really win late into March and early in April. And honestly, I don't think it will be as wide of a margin as it was in the SEC championship because, let's be honest, you're not going to hold Madison Booker to 30% from the field very often. And so In this one, I think it'll be a very big battle down low because, as we've seen, Sanaya Fagan and Chloe Kitts, some of the standout performers in the last matchup. 40 points in the paint the last time the Gamecocks met the Longhorns. And really, just as we've talked about, being the bigger presence down low really does wonders for your chances of winning in college basketball. And the last time out, they held Texas to 6 points in the second quarter. That's just not going to happen, not in March. Longhorns are going to take their time and make sure that doesn't happen again. But I think that South Carolina gets it done just because of the depth of that team. I mean, Texas has some players coming off the bench like Oldacre who gave South Carolina trouble in that first loss in the SEC for them. But I think South Carolina gets it done. They've really been tested down the stretch, and I think that bouncing back from adversity is what they do best, because you look at when they lost to, I want to say it was one of the losses to either UConn or Texas. The next game they came out and scored 101. So. Yeah. And as for UCLA and UConn, I'm going to go kind of against the grain here. I think UCLA gets it done. I'm a big fan of Lauren Betts from UCLA. Averages a near 20-point double-double with 9 rebounds, but also averages 3 blocks. That's insane. That's like Wembanyama numbers. Obviously, it's kind of unwise to bet against Gino this late in March and into April now, especially when Paige Beckers is putting up 40 and then 31 in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. And just the power dynamic down low of Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd is another thing not to be scoffed at. But I look at other players that UCLA has, and I look back at specifically that matchup they had against South Carolina where they beat them by 15. And players like Kiki Rice, who averages upwards of 5 assists per game and also over a steal. I think that UCLA's defense is just going to be too much. And I think that while UConn has been the hottest team in the country, I'm not sure how sustainable it is to expect Paige Beckers to be scoring upwards of 30 points in each round, even if it is her last dance.
So I'm going to ask you about South Carolina again. What's the key for them in the Final Four to make it to the championship and ultimately get their eyes on the prize and win that championship?
I think they've just got to do what they do well. We've seen that the struggles have come in games when they go down and they try to 3-hunt. They just aren't falling this season, and that's okay. Next season, it will be better. I think they've just got to keep going through Chloe Kitts. You've seen a lot of the times when she gets the ball at the top of the key, she makes things happen, whether it's a screen or finding someone in the corner. She's great at distributing the ball, and I think that when she does that, she also is easily getting into the paint and into position to back down people or go over the top of them and lay things up. So I think with how well they played in the paint against Texas last time in the SEC championship, I think they're going to want to find Sanaya Fagan, Chloe Kitts, and others down low and not really necessarily worry about the three-point shot, because that can turn things so sour for the Gamecocks this season. So
just get the players who know how to score the ball. And
exactly.
Things are going to happen. You put them in playmakers'
Why not
hands.
give the SEC tournament MVP the ball down low?
Yeah.
I think that's what they do best this season. I think that's what they need to do. They also need to rebound well against Texas, who is a very good rebounding team. But I think if they stick to their guns, play down low, I think they get it done.
Yeah, same kind of things we've been talking about all year, the 3 points, the rebounds, but they're starting to kind of work their way. Obviously, the second half of the season has been a lot better, where they've been able to kind of hone that craft and work out all the kinks that they need. And now they've seen just a few straight games of elite competition, and now they're getting into even better competition. So the fact that Tennessee Tech, I kind of harped on them at the beginning of the show, saying it wasn't
60 points.
I mean, it's 60 points, great win, but then you start playing the 5 seeds, then the 2 seeds, and now it gets really, really competitive. And so I love how this is why I love March. This is why I love this bracket. I love the tournament, because you fizzle out the best of the best. And we've got the 4 best teams. I will include Southern California with Juju Watkins.
Because realistically, I think they make a deeper run if they do have Juju Watkins.
I don't think we see UConn if Juju Watkins was playing on Sunday or Monday.
UConn also lost to USC earlier in the season.
They did.
So USC kind of having UConn and UCLA's number, but unable to do it because of the unfortunate injury to Juju Watkins. I would have liked to see her play in the Final Four.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you can expect coming up for the Final Four. And that wraps up our show for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in to Gamecock Game Day.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and YouTube at SGTV at USC. To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at SGTV at USC.com. I'm Austin McConnell.
And I'm Zander Collins. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great night, Carolina. Forever to thee.